Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and if you've been online in around the past week in the Genshin community, then you'll know that there has been quite a few reactions to a brand new watchmojo list to the top 20 characters in Genshin, and that kind of got me thinking, who would I rank as my top 20 characters, which is exactly what we are going to be doing here today. Now, I still don't have my PC, so perfect time to make a list video. And in case you can't tell, I am still a bit sick, so excuse any cuts because that's just me coughing my lungs out. But with that being said, let's just hop right into it. And I actually want to start off with a few honorable mentions. I do have a few here, and I actually do want to start out with a character who I was heavily considering on this list, but she did just about miss thanks to a couple of reasons, and that's actually going to be Cookie. Now, Cookie is a very, very decent character, especially for free-to-plays. If this was a list of how worth is it to build a character, then Cookie definitely would be in the top 20 since she is a 4-star character. And you don't even need any constellations. I mean, up to C2 is nice, but beyond that, you don't even need anything, and she will still be very decent in hyper carry teams, which is why I'll put her as an honorable mention. But considering the fact that there are other characters who can also fulfill that roles, and this is basically just the power ranking, then she's gonna miss out barely, but I do still think she deserves a mention. Now, another character I want to put in the honorable mentions is because honestly, since I don't own this character on any accounts, and it's kind of the team damage which matters rather than their individual damage, so it can be a little bit difficult to gauge. I would actually put Nilo in my honorable mentions as well. I think you can make a very, very easy argument for her to be in the top 20, and that's maybe even in the higher parts of the list rather than this part of the list. But simply because I haven't played her enough, I haven't seen enough from her, even though she's been out for basically like 2 years now, to the point that I'm not really comfortable ranking her, so she is only going to be an honorable mention. And then for my 2 other honorable mentions, I'm just going to slot in 2 cryo units because none actually made my list. Ayaka was in there originally just because she is still pretty decent to this day, and I mean, so is Ryzie, although I think C0, maybe I'd slightly take Ayaka, although Ryzie does have a bit more flexibility, therefore maybe you could put him over Ayaka. It really depends on your thinking. But yeah, since there's no cryo, I figured I might as well throw them in as honorable mentions. But with that being out the way, I think I should get into my first character in the top 20, and straight away I will say this is a character who back in the day definitely would have been considered a at least top 5 character, but I think nowadays top 20 is probably fair. For me, that's going to be Raiden. Now, she used to be the strongest electro DPS. I'd say Clarin's probably a stronger DPS than she is now, although the nice thing is you can obviously play her as a Hyper Bloom trigger. She is damage wise a better Hyper Bloom trigger than Cookie, even if she doesn't have the healing mechanic, and also she has the benefit of range. So if you're playing a Hyper Bloom team and you want to squeeze out as much damage as you can, Raiden would technically be your best option, and you can just use her for general application as well. So she's kind of just a very versatile unit nowadays. Back in the day, she was just seen as this ultra strong unit. Nowadays, she's still a pretty damn strong unit. I mean, we're putting her in the top 20, which is like the top 30% of Genshin characters, since we're coming on to 62 characters now, I believe, which is a lot. So I still think top 20 is fair for Raiden nowadays. Now, next up, this is actually going to be my favorite character in the entirety of the game. My number 1 favorite, with my number 2 being Ryzie, who is in our honorable mentions. But yeah, my number 19 character right now is going to be Zhongli. Now, I know some people will say, oh, Zhongli's not that good, he just has a massive shield, but in my opinion, that shield and that comfort it gives you definitely makes him at least a top 20 character. I can see why people will want to put him higher. I know some people say he's a damage loss, although I think if you're not getting knocked back and alongside the res shred, he might be a damage game for you if you're not going to be bothering with dodging, which sometimes can be difficult. Also, he just makes for a decent core in double geo, whether that's Zhongli Shilonen or Zhongli Chiori. I still feel like he's a very, very useful unit, and because of that usefulness, he is still in my top 20. And next up, we have a character who I honestly think could be placed higher, but I'm going to be putting her in the 18th slot right now. The thing is, we have a lot of very strong units in single target, which is what Hu Tao specializes in. But honestly, she is still absolutely insane in single target. I think Hu Tao to this day is one of the strongest DPS. I mean, I have used her in basically every single Abyss run in the last 2 years. She never fails me. She's an incredible character. Now you can play her with like Farina Shilonen, or you can play her with like Farina and Shenyun for a plunge team, or you can just go the classic double Hydro route alongside Zhongli. And yeah, I mean, she just has so many team options. All of them are good. Now, I do play with a Homa Hu Tao, although in my showcases she is on Dragon's Bane. And yeah, she still gets insane clears. In the first half of this Abyss, I think in my clears, basically all of them were sub 1 minute on the first half using Hu Tao. So yeah, she definitely does still keep up. The only reason why I don't have her higher is just because, honestly, some of these units are just newer, so some of them are more suited to the current content, and also probably going to get buffs from new characters. For example, when Mavrika releases, probably characters like Kenichi and Mualani will get buffs, but I still think a top 18 spot for Hu Tao is very respectable, and I can see arguments as to why she should go up. Now, for my next character in this range, from a very single target unit to a very AoE unit, we have Xiao, one of the most buffed characters when it comes to teammates he has gotten since his release, alongside Hu Tao, to be fair. I feel like these two are probably the most buffed characters since release, because, you know, you had Yelan, then Farina, then Shenyun, and then for Xiao you had Farazan, then you had Farina, then you had Shenyun. So yeah, both these guys have gotten quite a few buffs, and the reason why I actually put Xiao higher than Hu Tao is, although Hu Tao is probably stronger on an individual level than Xiao, it's just her niche has very much been covered, whereas Xiao is one of the few very AoE characters, with probably the other one being Nilo. And I know a lot of people will say for Xiao you need his premium team, which is why he's not higher in this list, but if you do have Xiao's premium team, he is actually novelette levels of strong in AoE. Literally the only character in AoE who can compete with Xiao's premium team is Novelette, which is why, in my opinion, Xiao should definitely be in the top 20, and that's where I'm going to be putting him, because in AoE, in the right team, this man can absolutely shred. Now, me personally, I don't have Shenyun, and my Farazan's only C2, so, you know, I can't play that team, but I can still play alternative teams, and they're still pretty damn good. Just, you know, sometimes Xiao can be annoying, but it is fixed by his premium team, which is why, you know, it has the potential to be really high up. And now, finally, for our final character in this category, it's going to be one of the newest characters in the game. Well, not really, but still relatively new. It's going to be Clarinde, and I do think she's probably the strongest. You know, you can play her in Overload, although I do think her best teams are definitely aggregate teams alongside Nahida plus Fischl, and then one of Kazuha or Shalonen. I do think Shalonen's probably the better choice in some of those teams, especially in single target. But yeah, this girl can be an absolute boss killer, just like Hu Tao. I know, pretty new unit. I think a top 16 placement is fair for one of the strongest Electro DPSs in the game right now. But then moving on to 15, one of our actual newest characters is going to be Kenichi. Kenichi, very strong Dendro DPS. Personally, don't have him, but I do know that he is a very, very solid DPS. I mean, Natlan just hasn't missed when it comes to character power levels right now. I believe we are probably seeing a bit of a power spike nowadays, but honestly, it's been 4 or 5 years? I can't keep track. I think it's 4 years? No, 5 years? I don't remember. I don't care. Kenichi, very strong, very good Dendro DPS, burning teams, OP, and probably gonna get even better when the Pyro Archon releases. But now, next up, I do actually want to put our first 4-star on the list, and that's gonna be Fischl. I mean, literally incredible battery, incredible sub DPS, also keeps getting buffs. I mean, just put her on Stringless and Golden Troop and she will do incredible damage. I mean, in a Clarinde team, a lot of the damage, honestly, is Fischl. That's just how good she is. So, yeah, I don't think we need to talk too much about Fischl. Everyone knows she is absolutely amazing to this day. And next up, I do actually want to talk about Navia, our Geo DPS queen. Unfortunately for Ito, she definitely does take the crown for the strongest Geo DPS. And you can also run her in teams which are not just Geo teammates, which is nice. I know Farina Bennett is one of her strongest teams, or you could go for something like Yelan Farina if you don't want to bother with Circle Impact, and then, you know, top it off with either like a Zhongli or a Chiori or a Shalonen, and, you know, you just have a very strong team which can deal insane damage on the skill as well, not even on the burst, which is always very nice to have. So yeah, one of the strongest DPS in the entire games, and she does also give you Geo coverage, which is nice. Especially considering the fact that Geo is one of those elements which they will randomly just throw into the Abyss just as a kind of character check, which you have to deal with, which can be a bit annoying. So yeah, it's very useful having a Navia on your account, and I kind of wish I did have one. Well, now, next up we have Mualani. Mualani, probably one of the strongest DPS in the game. I believe strongest nuke DPS in the game would be a fair statement to say. Sorry, Eula, but yeah, Mualani can just hit for incredible single target damage. For me, she's not quite Neuvillette here. I've already had so many people whenever I say I think Neuvillette is better, being like, oh my, Mualani is so much better for speedrunning. Respectfully, I don't care, but at the same time, I do still acknowledge she is a very powerful unit. And, I mean, power speaks for itself. Top 12 unit minimum, in my opinion. I can see why people will put her higher. It's just there are a couple of characters I want to put higher. For reasons you'll see later on. So, yeah, Mualani is going to have to be in 12th, although honestly I could see her going up, maybe even to the top tiers when Pyroarchon releases. Just depends how strong Mavika's kit is, to be honest. But yeah, Mualani will be top 12 for me for the time being. Now, next up we have our other limited Dendro DPS, and that's going to be Alhaitham, who I'm actually surprised I didn't put in the top 10. Alhaitham, very strong playing either in Quicken or in Quick Bloom teams. For example, a Farina Baiju Cookie team, which I normally play him in. Or you can just run him alongside Nahida / Baiju and then like Fischl Yai or like Fischl Beidou. And yeah, this man can just kill. His Dendro damage is incredible, especially in Quicken scenarios. This man, just amazing damage, amazing Dendro DPS. I do think he is probably the strongest Dendro DPS. I will put him slightly above Knight, although that can change once Mavika releases. And then also Mualani might beat Neuvillette when Mavika releases. Like I said, literally depends on the Pyroarchon kit. If it's OP, we might see a Natlan meta develop. Right now, I think these are fair placements. But now, moving into our top 10, and the reason why characters like Alhaitham or Mualani missed out is because just for their longevity and how strong they've been, I want to put units like Bennett and Xiangling in the top 10 together. I mean, Xiangling, first of all, big damage, so you know, that's always a nice bonus. Second of all, incredible pyro application, so she can make many teams work. I mean, many of these teams below, such as Mualani teams, some Knight teams, you know, they will use Xiangling. Other teams, like, I mean, Knight uses Bennett, Shao can use Bennett, you know, in all her DPS teams, Raiden used Bennett, and then some other characters here, they will also be used. These guys, just so many characters use them. They're just such a decent core for every team that I think it's wrong to not include these guys in the top 10 just for how long they've been carrying all of us. And I mean, they're 4 stars, so, you know, come on. And then another pair I want to put up is going to be Xingqiu and Yelan. I mean, just incredible Hydro sub DPSs. Do very similar jobs. Honestly, I think you can rank them either way. Some might say Xingqiu is stronger because of his defensive utility and quicker Hydro application. I believe if you have his C6 in comparison to a C0 Yelan. But then some might say Yelan's buffs and stuff make her better than Xingqiu. But I mean, these guys, just put them on a team together. They'll make it good. Maybe a Navia team, maybe an Alakino team, Hu Tao teams. Just an incredible pair to have. Very strong. And then for our final character, before we move into our top 5, who just narrowly missed out, we're going to put Alakino, who I think is the second strongest DPS in the game. So we have Alhaitham in 11th, who I believe is our third strongest. And then Alakino, our second strongest in the top 6. And I mean, I'm sure you guys know who's going to be at the top. But yeah, Alakino, incredible pyro DPS. AoE, single target, much team diversity, even more than Hu Tao does. Because, you know, you can play a mono pyro, you can play a double vape. You can play her Overload, you can just do whatever you want. She's one of the most flexible DPS in the game when it comes to team archetypes, and also just one of the most powerful in general. I mean, I am so glad that I managed to pull a double Alakino, because C1 Alakino is OP to hell. She is literally incredible. But then even C0 Alakino, still in my opinion, second strongest in the DPS in the game. Like I said, until Pyroarchon comes out, or maybe Pyroarchon will make Alakino even better, who knows, which is why for the time being she's going to be in 6th for me. Now when it comes to the top 5, I want to start off 5th place with Nahida. Incredible Dendro sub DPS and support for any Dendro team whatsoever. If you're playing a Dendro team, you're probably playing Nahida in it, although to be fair, I mean, some teams like Knight, she's probably less useful than she is for other characters like Alhaitham, but you know what? I still think she's a very decent unit. I mean, she just, you know, she can give you like about 250 EM, I think it is. You can get Dendro Res Red if you give her the Dendro set. So if you play Hyper Bloom, even more Hyper Bloom damage. And I mean, her Dendro application is just insane for characters. I mean, it gives incredible battery for Alhaitham, incredible application for Clorinde. I mean, any Hyper Bloom team just slot her in. Nilu teams as well, incredible. So, you know, if you want a good AoE team, if you want a good Electro team, if you want a good Dendro team, Nahida can sort you out, which is why for me she is a top 5 unit. But then the other Archon, I mean, you can argue if she's an Archon or not. If you want, I'm going to put Farina in the 4th spot. One of the best supports we have in the entire game. I mean, she herself has some incredible damage on her skill. And then, I mean, her buff can just give you just insane amount of buffs. I mean, it's so much damage percentage. It's insane. I mean, why do you think characters... I mean, Farina's just a character which you can put on almost any team. I mean, you can... I mean, literally, right now, people play her with Arlecchino, Alhaitham, Moalani, Navia, Kanich. There's even Clorinde teams, Xiao, Hu Tao. Literally, almost every single DPS in this list uses a Farina, which almost makes me feel like she could go higher. But there are a few units I want to place just above her, but literally, as a buffer, she is just insane. If you're not using her in one of your best teams, I literally do not know what you are doing. Farina is an insane support in this game, probably just one of the strongest single buffers in the entire game. But when it comes to other buffers, I actually want to put 2 at the same time, because honestly I feel like they're just as good as each other, and whichever one is better for you depends on the scenario, whether it's AoE or single target. So that is going to be Kazuha and Shallonen. I am just going to place them together. You know, you can place them either way, doesn't really matter. Like I said, I believe they're just as strong as each other. I mean, they just both give a lot of res shred damage bonus, and then they'll give you some utility, whether it be grouping or healing. So, yeah, these two just as buffers. If you play them, I mean, you can save 1 for each Abyss side, or you can just gigaload 1 Abyss side and just put both of these guys on the same team and just give massive buffs to, for example, your Arlecchino or your #1 spot character, Neuvillette. Now, I know arguably these 3 characters could all be placed above Neuvillette because supports are arguably stronger than DPSs in Genshin because they are the core of your team. But I mean, Neuvillette, he's just iconic, man. He can literally just carry you through every single abyss. If you just want to do a mindless abyss run, or you want to do something fun on the other half, but you're not sure how well it will work, just slap Neuvillette on your other half, and he will literally just get the job done, which means you can just mess around and basically do anything you want, and you will still get a 36-star clear thanks to Neuvillette. I mean, literally just give him any one of these characters, and he will do an insane job. Or even Nahida. You can play a Neuvillette Hyper Bloom team. I mean, Neuvillette Farina is the most iconic one. If you don't have her, you can just slap a Kazuha or a Shallonen. And I mean, this guy can just do insane damages. Put him on any team, his damage will be incredible, which is why, for me, Neuvillette is the #1 character in this game. He will literally carry you through everything. And yeah, that's it. That's my top 20. Be sure to let me know what you guys think. I believe I did a better job than watchmojo. I mean, they literally had Shallonen in 12th and Xiangling in like 18th, 17th, same with Xingqiu. So yeah, I think I at least did a better job than them, but you guys can let me know. I mean, when it comes to characters we missed out, I mean, Child's always been good, especially for speedrunners. I mean, Emily, honestly, I would put Emily as a honorable mention. She's actually probably, like, when it comes to sub DPS damage, she's probably one of the strongest in the entire game, but she just gets overlooked because, I mean, no one pulled for her. But she is still very strong in Moalani teams or in Kanich teams, so, yeah, I think she could be deserving of an honorable mention, but, yeah, this will be my top 20. If you want to make it a top 25, you can just throw in the honorable mentions, but, yeah, let me know, do you think any of these guys deserve to be in the list? Would you put any characters in another way? Would you maybe put Moalani higher? Would you put Alhaitham higher? Would you put Kanich higher? Maybe Navia? I don't know. Be sure to let me know. Although, just please keep it civil. You know, friendly discussion is very fun, but then toxicity is not fun, so none of that. Thank you very much. But yeah, with that being said, I hope this helped and you guys enjoyed. See ya.